Well, hello there, people of the internet. I am really confused and conflicted, frankly, about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Here we have the sequel to what is the best-selling Zelda game of all time, releasing on one of the best-selling consoles of all time. Oh, and it just so happened it's one of the highest Metacritic reviewed games of all time as well. So what's the problem? Tears of the Kingdom set up to be a surefire hit, right? What is there to be confused about? We finally saw some extensive gameplay in a recent Nintendo Direct, and the reaction has been interesting to say the least. Now personally, for me, I've played quite a few of the Zelda games over the years. I have enjoyed the vast majority. In fact, I don't think there's any Zelda game that I just flat out did not like. Even Skyward Sword, which is my least favorite Zelda game, overall I still found it enjoyable, even if I have quite a few critiques for that game. After Skyward Sword's release in 2011, most agreed the series needed a bit of a reimagining. Many fans argued in favor of a more open world with the freedom to explore, and Breath of the Wild delivered on all of this in a big way. So I played it day one, launch day, same day that the Nintendo Switch released, and by and large I enjoyed it. Even if I don't rank it among like the best games ever made, like a lot of people do, I still had a great time with the game. I mean, it is a top tier experience, one of my most memorable gaming experiences for sure, but still I wouldn't put it in that kind of upper echelon of greatest games of all time like I've seen from a lot of people. So lately I've been playing more recent titles. Jedi Fallen Order, a little bit older, but I'm playing that in preparation for Jedi Survivor, God of War Ragnarok, Hogwarts Legacy. And so to be totally honest with you guys, when I first saw the gameplay, I mean just my initial reaction of Tears of the Kingdom was, oh my goodness, this looks so incredibly dated. I mean, going from those more modern titles to this was just jarring. And I want to be clear before you guys start yelling at me, graphics are not everything. There are some fantastic games out there that don't look all that good graphically. But Tears just looked so dated to me, guys. So dated. And trust me, I know it's running on dated hardware. I mean, some would even say the Nintendo Switch was dated when it released. We keep waiting. When is the Switch 2? When is the Switch Pro going to come out? We thought Nintendo was going to do that thing they normally do, or at least I should say that thing they've been doing lately with Zelda games where they release it on an older system and then also release it on a newer system. I mean, we saw that with Twilight Princess releasing on the GameCube and on the Wii. Then we saw it again with Breath of the Wild, which I did not even remember. Did you guys know that game released on the Wii U? Yeah, released on the Wii U and of course the Nintendo Switch. Now, as I mentioned, I played Breath of the Wild day one and I do not remember it looking this bad. So I had to test this out right away. I pulled out my Nintendo Switch OLED, popped in the cartridge, and was pleasantly surprised. I didn't think, at least on the handheld side, it did not look nearly as bad as what we just saw with Tears of the Kingdom. I did go ahead and dock it then, pulled it up on my monitor, and while it definitely looked worse on the larger screen, losing some of the sharpness that you get when you're playing on handheld mode, I still thought it looked better than what Nintendo just showed us. I mean, you be the judge. Take a look at this side-by-side footage here. Breath of the Wild on the left, that is running on my Nintendo Switch. I think it looks much better visually. And I've also watched quite a few other videos breaking this down. Some seem to believe that this could be like maybe a YouTube compression issue with Nintendo's upload. I just can't imagine that a title being developed from the ground up for the Switch all these years later would somehow look worse. Now, I don't expect it to look just way better. Don't expect that at all. But how could they go backwards? Surely not, right? Surely not. But that aside, let's just assume that the final version of the game at least looks on par with Breath of the Wild. Do we then have valid concerns when it comes to the graphics? And this is where it really starts to get tricky, right? I mean, for me personally, I am not a graphics above all else kind of guy. I'm not. If you are a PS5 or Xbox Series X player or PC player, and then you're going back to play your Nintendo Switch as well, it can be, like I said in the beginning, it can be a jarring experience. And I think the biggest reason for that is because in the back of my mind, it's like I'm always thinking how good this could look, how smooth this could be running right now. And trust me, I know, I promise I know. It's not Nintendo's thing, right? They're not going to be on the cutting edge of hardware. They bowed out of that a long time ago. I mean, really with the Wii, that's when they said, look, we're not going to compete on the graphics front anymore. We're going to do something unique, something different. And they have mastered that 2 out of the 3 times. Wii did a pretty good job. Wii U, not so much. The Switch, of course, has been a smashing success. So I get all of those things when people say you can't expect this from Nintendo. But, you guys, the Switch hardware, it is so outdated at this point. I mean, if we had The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom running on a current gen system and compared it to the Switch, it would almost be like a 2-generation leap. Think about that. This is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild running on a high-end PC, of course through an emulator in 4K at an incredibly silky smooth frame rate. Now, I don't know, there's some more shader things or something that they've been upgrading for this one, but you have to agree, right? This is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I am mesmerized when I found this footage online. The world that's there underneath what you see on your Nintendo Switch, it is absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. It's just being held back by the hardware. Okay, so setting all of that aside, I do believe, graphics aside, Nintendo can still deliver a quality, enjoyable experience with an open world game in 2023 on dated hardware and make it fun. But here's the key: so long as that performance doesn't start to actually bleed into the gameplay. And here we're talking about things like frame rate. If the game really struggles, if it really chugs, and we saw this a little bit with Breath of the Wild, to be honest. Do you notice lots of texture pop in? Do the physics work always how they're supposed to work? And to be fair, the physics, that was definitely one of the strong suits of Breath of the Wild. This graphics thing is one that is so subjective and really depends on you and your personal taste as a gamer. I know for me personally, I do believe I'll be able to get past it. It may be hard at the beginning coming from all these next-gen games and then going back and be like, oh man, this is so jarring, because I'll have that nagging thought. This footage that we just looked at of Breath of the Wild running in 4K, I'll have that in the back of my mind knowing how good it could look. But with Nintendo, gameplay is king, and Breath of the Wild had some really fun gameplay sections, and I think over time, as I really start to get into the game, I'm hoping that some of that will fade away. I don't know, maybe I should play it all on handheld mode. I think it'll look even better in handheld than it does on the big screen. And that really leads me to the second big thing I keep seeing online in terms of people critiquing what we've seen so far. And it's the question of, is this enough with Tears of the Kingdom to warrant a full-fledged sequel, or is it just a glorified DLC? I think what has people concerned is the fact that it takes place in the very same Hyrule from Breath of the Wild. Now, there are already quite a few of these videos out there where you can go and see these side-by-side comparisons, so you can see just how close they are. And to be fair, there are some differences as well that you can see, but by and large, it is the same Hyrule. The biggest addition seems to be these Sky Islands, which admittedly, they do look massive and like there's going to be a great deal new to discover with these. Now, in that recent Nintendo Direct, Nintendo really made sure they focused on these new gameplay mechanics. There's the recall ability, which allows you to reverse time on an object, so you can hitch a ride on these giant blocks that fall from the sky by recalling them. There's also the fuse ability, which lets you take weapons and combine them with objects in the world to make the weapon more powerful, so it does more damage, and also more durable, so it doesn't break as easily. And yep, that's right, it seems like weapons breaking down is still going to be a thing in Tears of the Kingdom. Ultra Hand is another ability. This one will essentially let you glue objects together, and they showed Link building a little makeshift raft here using 3 logs and then fusing on these powered fans to get it across the lake. One of the strengths of Breath of the Wild was how the game really gave you the freedom and encouraged you to just try things. The physics were amazing, and a lot of times there were multiple ways to approach a puzzle or combat scenario thanks to all of Link's abilities. I mean, even now, this year, there are new secrets being discovered, new gameplay mechanics that people are figuring out with Breath of the Wild just because of how open it was and how you could approach these scenarios in so many different ways. And with all of these new features Nintendo showed off, it seems like they are doubling down on this vast open world and giving the player all of these tools to play with to see what you can come up with. They're really encouraging the player to think creatively in this open world. If it's anything like the first game in that regard, they're not going to be holding your hand either. They're not going to show you every single little detail, every single feature of these abilities. They want you to explore and experiment. The last one they showed off was another traversal mechanic, this one called Ascend. If you have a scenario where you don't want to climb all the way to the top of a structure, but you can get inside at a lower level, you can use this Ascend ability to essentially pass through the structure all the way to the top. I personally thought all of the abilities looked fun and interesting, and they're definitely going to change up the gameplay loop to a pretty significant degree. I think especially in the case of Fuse and Ultra Hand, I think there are going to be so many different strategies and new creations that people come up with using those 2 abilities, but that's not even beginning to mention the abilities we don't know about yet. There's going to be so much in this game. Nintendo is always very, very careful about what they show. They never want to show too much, so I think they were trying to show us just a little taste of the new gameplay elements. And those 2 alone is going to open up so many new gameplay possibilities. All in all, it certainly seems like Nintendo is going all in on the formula that they established with Breath of the Wild. While I personally enjoyed that formula, I know there's quite a few old school fans out there who were hoping they would be able to bring in maybe a few more of the classic Zelda gameplay elements like dungeons. Now, to be fair, we don't know for sure if dungeons are not in the game. There's no confirmation one way or another. And personally, I mean, I'm one of those people, I would love to see dungeons come back. and they absolutely did need to freshen things up after Skyward Sword. I think they totally made the right call to do something different, but there were still just a few things that it was lacking. And for me, I really did miss the traditional dungeons. Now, to those of you out there like me who may be still hoping for that, I think we have to realize, though, that the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. This game, Breath of the Wild, is by far, the best-selling Zelda title ever. I mean, if you go and look at like the second, third, and fourth, I think if you add up the second, third, and fourth best-selling Zelda titles of all time, they still do not outsell Breath of the Wild, which is just insane when you think about the history of this series. So this formula, Nintendo's doubling down on it, as it seems like they should, based on what the community feedback is saying, based on what the sales, based on what the reviews are saying. So if you're someone out there like me, it's like, oh, I really wish they would add this. It seems like they found a formula that works. Now, maybe they'll still find a way to please some of those fans as well who are hoping to see traditional dungeons. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, this is one where I really want to hear from you guys. Are you looking forward to Tears of the Kingdom? What was your reaction to that recent gameplay that they showed? Are you more excited now, less excited? Are you still wanting to see more? Or are you just like all in, you're buying it day one? Let me know in the comments below. Me personally, I am still excited for the game. That may seem like a surprise given all that I've said, all that I'm kind of concerned about going forward here. But by and large, Nintendo just has such a good track record. And at the end of the day, that's what I keep coming back to. They have such a great track record. I don't think they would release this game if it didn't have enough to differentiate itself. So I have high hopes for that. The technical side of it, I know I'm just going to have to get over that. It's still going to be in my mind for a while. I'm going to be thinking, man, this would look so much better if this was a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro. But like I said, maybe I'll play it mostly on handheld, or I don't know, just wait for an emulator or something. Nah, I'm definitely not going to do that. I'm going to have to play it. If you guys would like to see my full reaction to that Tears of the Kingdom trailer, though, we actually did a live stream right here on YouTube. I'll link it here on the right side of your screen. You can see my full reaction there. As always, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.